Alrighty, watch geeks, watch fans, watch aficionados the world over. 'Tis I, your favorite purveyor of all things orological, Michael Davis. I am flying solo. No Tim Temple. He is off doing Tim Temple things. And I did some Tim Temple things with Tim Temple once. And much mayhem ensued. There were a few restraining orders. No, I'm just kidding. We'll let Tim catch you up on that. He is unavailable. For those of you that kind of follow along at talkaboutwatches.com, and if you're not, you should be. We're going to talk about that a bit. You may have seen where I was talking about doing some beta testing for the various different formats or types of live stream shows. This is kind of one of those, so that's one of the reasons why I'm flying solo, plus Tim is legitimately out of pocket right now. But that's okay. I'm here. We're going to test things out. We're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to let you in on a few things, some secret stuff, some fun stuff. And then I am also going to try and answer some questions that folks have sent in that we've had sitting, and I owe an answer. I also owe to a lot of you, especially probably most of you seeing this on Facebook. I really went dark for quite a while as far as my participation or anybody seeing me. And that is due to all of the work on Talk About Watches and all the various things that were going on. I just literally had to kind of cut myself off from really kind of everything just to focus on that. I mean, literally, my days started about 5 a.m. or so, 6 if I sleep in, and then usually go to at least 11, 12 o'clock. You know, get to bed about midnight, pass out, fall asleep, get up, rinse, repeat, do it all over again. So for all of you that have been kind of wondering, you know, like what the hell's been going on, I apologize. Yeah, I got to catch up. Just started last night. Depending on when you're seeing this, if you're not seeing it live, Friday night I started doing some posting, and people were like, "Oh, hey, you're not dead." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." The rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated, as they say. But I got to catch up, with a good buddy of mine, Ken. I hadn't talked to him in a while and was able to get some, exciting news from him. My buddy Doug Eichhorn over in Texas. I kind of credit myself with getting him hooked on watches, or at least hooked more on watches. He's been a great friend of mine, going back better part of a decade. And then there's somebody special in Atlanta that I owe a very large apology to, and hopefully I will be receiving their approval of said apology. But so anyway, trying to get back into the swing of things, getting caught up on things, but we shall bring you up to date on all of that, and like I said, run through several things here, and two birds with one stone kind of thing. Also be able to do some testing here and get some feedback on how all of this actually works as far as the streaming goes. Ignore that strange sound if you just heard it. Helps to pause your sound on your phone. That was an alert saying that the price of Bitcoin just went down, for those of you wondering. Actually something I'm going to be writing about on Talk About Watches. But let's continue. Now at this point, some of you may be wondering to yourself or saying out loud, Mike, you're live. Why don't we see your bright, smiling, and quite frankly, ruggedly handsome and good-looking face on this live stream? Well, that is something I get all the time. I have to be honest with you. Being handsome and ruggedly good-looking is a burden that I must bear, and I'm asked about it quite See, I can't even say that with a straight face. The main reason you're not seeing my face is when I was talking a second ago about kind of going dark and cutting myself off from just about every external influence, so to speak, anything that could all the bright shiny objects that could distract me from doing the talk about watches work. I pretty much look like what my dearly departed and sainted grandmother would call the wild man of Borneo. So I've got like the old Grizzly Adams beard thing working and long tangly hair that's kind of going everywhere. So we're just going to keep Mike off the camera for this one. Next one, we'll do that. But that's why you're not seeing me, and you're not seeing Tim, because he's off doing those Tim things that we were talking about. But enough of all that. Let's won't say get rid of the frivolity in its entirety, but let's dive into some meatier issues here and have a look at what's going on and maybe enlighten you as to a few things. Alright, so first and foremost, I would be very remiss if I did not bring up the current flash sale that we are doing on Talk About Watches. As I'm sure you can see, this is primarily with Deep Blue. What is a flash sale, you may ask? Well, a Talk About Watches flash sale is for 3 days long or until sellout, whichever one happens first. If it does not sell out and we reach the end of that 3 days, that deal comes off the table. At the time that you are seeing this, you're going to have, depending on how things go with this new software and everything, more or less about 2 hours to get your order in before it comes off the table. Now, what we do is work to get you the absolute very best pricing that we can. We use whatever means necessary. So for instance, in this particular case, Tim and I were partying with Stan of Deep Blue out in Albuquerque, New Mexico a few years ago, and things got a little crazy. We managed to get some pictures, and we used that as leverage, to get Stan to give us a deal. No, just kidding. Actually, maybe I'm not. You'll never know. But, Stan's been a good friend to both Tim and I. So what we've got is the DayNight Recon, which is going to be the flash sale. And this is a pretty special watch. But when you talk about, prices, it really bears mentioning here because I think it was $24.99 this watch originally went out for. And really, if you want to go buy one right now and pay more, you can head on over to deepbluewatches.com. It is $17.99. That's the price it was well before we did the flash sale. This wasn't one of those things of, well, let's offer it for a price over here, but let's jack the price up on our side to make it. No, it was that. So $9.99, you can get this timepiece. Well, there's two different options. We'll take a quick look at it. But again, like I said, with only a couple of hours left before this comes off the table and it not being available again at this price point, this is going to appeal to a lot of you. But let's take a quick look at the two options that are available. Alright, so, as I was saying, you have two different options, and in my opinion, this one is the hotness. This is going to be the white dial version of the Deep Blue DayNight Recon 7750. Now, just to give you a quick rundown on this particular timepiece, two of the most important things to know about it are that, number one, this is the watch that is celebrating, was made to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Deep Blue as a brand. As such, it is a numbered limited edition. Now, there's two options, and there's only 200 in total, meaning not 200 of this white dial and 200 the other one is a black option. We'll take a quick look at it in a second. So it's not 200 each, it's 200 total. Now, I forgot, I just realized as I was getting ready and trying to put some stuff together to do this live stream, I actually forgot to ask Stan if he did 200 of each, how he broke that down. So I cannot tell you that for sure. It's entirely possible that he thought the black might appeal more as a traditional look and maybe did 125 of those and 75 of the white. I cannot tell you, so for that I apologize. But just to give you kind of a quick tour, and like I said, we'll take a look at the black option as well. So you are looking at a 45 millimeter case diameter. One of the reasons why I like the white version, 45 millimeters for me is a little small. It's really hitting the lower end of what I would buy and wear. But white dials, the lighter dials, tend to make the watch wear visibly on the wrist larger than what it really is. So if you're a bigger guy like I am, that might be one of the options that you want to take into consideration. But 45 millimeter case diameter, it's 53 millimeters from lug to lug. It's about 16 and a half millimeters in overall case thickness, with a 33 millimeter dial opening that's been done on that. And as I said, it is in all 316L stainless steel. The movement is a Swiss-made Valjoux 7750. That is, for those of you not familiar with the movement, a 25 joule Swiss-made automatic chronograph. This version is day and date at the 3 o'clock position. As some of you may know, some brands will choose to cover over one or both of those, not in this particular case. Operates at 28,800 vibrations per hour, or 4 hertz, which is the standard for the Valjoux 7750. The other thing that's really going to jump out at you about the DayNight Recon is the fact that it utilizes not only superluminova in the markings on the bezel. Now that is a ceramic bezel inlay that's been done on there, 120 click, unidirectional. Obviously this is a dive watch. You can see the dive scale that's been done, and those are the additional markings between the 12 and 3 o'clock position that you see on the bezel there. But what's been done on the ceramic bezel is superluminova. Then the kicker is on the dial and the hands, the treatment that's been done there is 64 tritium tubes, T100 tubes. Now let me say something really quick about tritium. This is actually an article that I'm working on for Talk About Watches. I'm not going to mention names. Many of you are familiar with at least one of the brands that I'm talking about here. If you take one of their T100 tube watches and put it next to a deep blue watch with T100 tubes, most of the time you're going to notice that the deep blue T100 tubes are much brighter. The reason for that is Stan doesn't really just kind of jerk your chain and call it T100 when it's not. I'm not going to get into it here because it's a long drawn-out conversation, and you have to get into how it works, or how tritium works within the special lead tubes that are created for it with the phosphorescent lighting, blah, blah, blah. But essentially, other companies rip you off and legally can call them T100 tubes. Other companies do, and speaking of deep blue, do what they're supposed to do, and if it's T100, then it's the maximum amount of tritium gas that is in there. But 64 of them, and as we take a look here in just a second at the lume shots on this, you're going to see that it is 2 different colors that are used on this. Other than that, you're looking at 500 meters of water resistance, so that is well above dive spec level, all the way to 1,650 feet. It does come on a 316L stainless steel bracelet, 22 millimeters wide, tapers to 20 millimeters at the clasp. The clasp is a scissor style diver's flip lock safety clasp, and the bracelet includes half links and full links, plus it's either 3 or 4 micro adjustments on the clasp itself. So if you're worried about getting the perfect fit on the wrist, have no fears. He has given you every possible option that you can get, and it's a beefy bracelet too. It's about 4.5 millimeters in overall thickness. Exhibition case back, sapphire crystal, anti-reflective coating, so you can see into the movement, and you are getting the custom 10-year anniversary deep blue decorated rotor that's been done on that. It will include your limited edition certification card that shows you that, and it does come in your standard little deep blue dive box packaging. Now, with that said, again, $9.99 for the entire package. And by the way, you'll see it when you go to Talk About Watches to have a look at it. That includes shipping. $9.99, tax, total, everything. $9.99 out the door, shipped to you. What is today? Saturday. So they'll go out Monday. You get your order in, it'll go out Monday. You'll probably have it, most of you, by, like, you know, depending on where you live, Wednesday or Thursday, probably something along those lines. By the way, that's not a guarantee. I'm not speaking as for the shipping that Stan's going to do. Buy it right now. You can go get one, $1,799, or before the flash sale over, $999, tax, title, and license from Talk About Watches. But let's take a look at the other one real quick. So this is the second of the 2 options in the Deep Blue DayNight Recon. Actually, what is the full name of this? That's a mouth. Deep Blue DayNight Recon 7750 Valjoux 7750 Tritium T100 10-year anniversary numbered limited edition. So, if anybody's good at copywriting, that's Stan Batesh, care of Deep Blue. Watch it now. It's, you know, there's a hell of a lot he's trying to put in there, and he damn well should, to be quite honest with you. So, however you want to call it, just call it on your wrist. But this is going to be, obviously, the more traditional look between the two. Now, by traditional, I mean, you know, Deep Blue makes dive watches, or diver-style watches. I'm not going to tell you that every single one meets, you know, dive standards, but the idea is, if it's not a dive watch, it has the dive watch look. This is a dive watch. Now, obviously, you're not going to dive, without a dive computer on the wrist, right? If you're doing anything, any kind of even semi-serious scuba diving. But on the opposite side of the wrist, and that's one of the reasons why the 64 tritium tubes are being used here, is because in all but the absolute murkiest of waters, you're going to be able to see on your wrist. So if you ever, you know, if you've ever been diving and suddenly found out you needed something you could see on the other wrist to have an idea of, you know, if you're about to run out of air or something, then you'll know the value of this. But, you know, the brushed 316L stainless steel, the silver tone that you get from that against the black bezel, remember that is a ceramic insert that's been done on the bezel with the Superluminova, and then 64 T100 tubes, tritium gas tubes, done in 2 different colors, again going to the dive watch configuration or look, because you need to be able to quickly and easily tell the correct timing that you're actually using the watch for. So, the biggest thing is, the water resistance is great, and yes, it is more expensive to make it that way. Your true expense is really coming into the fact of using the Swiss-made Valjoux 7750 automatic chronograph. Those are still fairly expensive movements, even though they are very widely used, within the industry, depending on what brand you're buying. For the cost of a single Valjoux 7750, you could buy a watch, or in some cases 2 watches, for what that Valjoux 7750 is going to cost you. And then the other thing is, Superluminova is more expensive, both as a raw material before put onto a product, but it's the tritium tubes. And there's just so much that goes into that, and again, unfortunately don't have time to really dig into the whole thing with the tritium. We're going to, or I am, as I said earlier, in the article that I'm working on. But the materials and manufacturing are more expensive, and then because it is considered a radioactive substance, but don't worry, you're not going to grow a third, horn or something, unless you're Gonzo and living in Minnesota, and that's liable to happen naturally. Just kidding. You have to ship it in a particular way, and only certain companies can do this. These are MB Microtech, by the way, tubes that have been done on there. So it does add a great deal of expense to the timepiece, and certainly the $9.99 price that you're seeing there, with that being the actual final price, with no upcharges, no surcharges, no shipping, tax, title, license, as I say, out the door. Obviously a fantastic deal, but again, roughly 2 hours, or probably by this point with me babbling, less than that, before this deal comes off the table. We did kick this off on Wednesday night, so you do have until approximately 9 p.m. Eastern to make that happen. So we'll take a look at a couple of other shots on the way out the door from this in the black option. And just one other thing in relationship to the flash sale that's going on is the fact that our good friend Mark, aka Gonzo, the master beater. See, I've been waiting for folks to ask me. I keep putting it on the webpage. I keep saying it. Nobody says anything. He is the master beater up in Minnesota, don't you know? That does these awesome custom-made, handmade Gonzo creation beaded bracelets. And by the way, I'm putting you into the black option on that one. It is phenomenal. Those are $30. Now that's like, I don't have his pricing right in front of me. That's like, because he does 3 different styles, and he's on the Talk About Watches website in the shop. He's got his own little accessory shop. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Unfortunately, I don't have good images for either him or the By Sean custom woven, the paracord style bracelets that you also see there, that I can use. They're too small, and I'm even thinking this one is going to be too small, but you can get an idea. So the BBG, or Beads by Gonzo bracelets, are $30 a piece. That is like 1/3 of his upper tier, and I think half of the lowest tier that he makes, because he does 3 different styles, as you'll see there. But he has severely discounted these. They were put together specifically to pair up with these deep blue watches. Also, you'll see the paracord style bracelets. Those are from By Sean, who also has his own area. That's Sean's staff. and he specializes in the custom woven bracelets. He's got 4 different models that are currently up there. Here's a really stupid part about the By Sean stuff, and not calling Sean stupid because, you know, he's a smart guy. $15. Now the kicker is most places with a flash sale like this, they put it together as a package, and if you couldn't get the bracelet without getting the watch, right? Because everybody's making the most money off the watch. And when I say everybody, you know, I'm not talking, you know, Sean and Mark or Gonzo don't make money off of the sale of the watch. But we could force you into having to get it as a package deal. If you already own the Deep Blue, and I know some of you watching do, because I've seen your posts on Facebook, or, you know, a lot of folks wouldn't say this because it's not sales friendly. Maybe this isn't your thing. Maybe, you know, you don't wear dive watches. Maybe you can't afford right now $990. You know, look, whatever the reason, can't sell everything to everyone all the time. We understand that, right? So for whatever reason, you just go, man, Mike's right. That, you know, holy crap, that black bracelet is awesome. I need that. Great, go order it. $30 out the door. Tax, title, license, same thing with the watch. It's $30. That's what it shows. That's what you pay. That's how it's going to ship. $15 for the By Sean. If neither one of the By Sean or Beads by Gonzo bracelets work for you, by all means do have a look at their other work. Their other work is going to be slightly more expensive. It's not a part of the flash sale, but there is more customization involved for both of those accessory brands as far as picking what you want, the size of the stones, the color of the stones, the type of weave that you're using, how thick, how many colors. All those things are on the Talk About Watches shop, so please do have a look there. But that is the current flash sale. Again, this is going to end in about 2 hours or so, depending on when I can get this posted or through post and up, put out to everyone, because I'm trying to get it posted on the website as well, because I know not everybody has Facebook, and I get yelled at when we do Facebook stuff. So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. It's going to go up on YouTube as well. So a lot of different options that I got to get in place as quickly as possible. But let's move along, because we have some other things to talk about. Man, is it just me, or is it getting hot in here? Oh, some of you haven't heard that in a while. So part of what I wanted to do, if you're not a subscriber to our email list, please subscribe. We try not to spam you to death. We only send out stuff when it's important and put information in there, but that way you'll know about some of the goings on, and when there's new information on the website you need to pay attention to. But yeah, what I'm referring to, and especially if you're kind of new or you caught this and you're like, who's this idiot, you know, babbling about watches or whatever, the Hotness Picks are back. We've hinted about it, we've talked about it, we've lined everything up, and for those of you that enjoyed the Hotness Picks in the past, I mean, you know, I sure as hell enjoyed being able to do that for what, 2-3 years, I guess it was. Yeah, about 2. Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. Met a lot of great people, was able to get a lot of great watches out there. Was kind of putting that aside because of Talk About Watches, and then things kind of fell into place. So as you can see, yes, it's getting hot, and let me tell you a little bit more about what to expect. And as of actually earlier today with the emails that I got, how quickly all of this is going to happen. So it is a done deal. It is signed in blood, on paper, legally binding. The Hotness Picks are now a part of Talk About Watches. So, you know, as I said, you know, I thought it was only fair with the amount of time that I was going to have to devote to the Talk About Watches project and all that it entails, and we've really only barely scratched the surface as far as what we've told you, the viewer, the listener, the reader, you know, whatever the format may be at the time. There's things going on that we haven't even talked about, and you'd think I'd pause that phone. And I'm sorry if that microphone picked that up. Bitcoin just took another dive. I will get that taken care of. But you know, with talk about watches, we're able to bring this in now, and it's really because everything just lined up perfectly and it made sense. So through some contacts that Tim and I have, we're able to rebrand and relaunch the Hotness Picks and do it in a little bit of a different format, but what I think is a much better format. And the reason I say that is, here's how it's going to work. So we are going to be doing daily deals, right? Daily Hotness Picks. We are going to kick those out probably at about 9 p.m. Eastern. And the reason we selected that is because it's still early enough for those on the East Coast and in the middle part of the country. But those of you on the West Coast don't get hosed because it's so early and you're either still at work or trying to get home. Okay, so that's the biggest compromise that we could make on that we thought would make everybody the happiest. So those will go out via email. There'll be postings up on the website, talkaboutwatches.com. And we are going to try and give you as much ongoing information about the brands and the watches that you're going to be purchasing. Now, each of the emails that goes out at 9 p.m. is going to contain 2 watches. Not 1, 2. One watch of the 2 is going to be a higher-end piece. Let's call it a luxury-style timepiece. And by that, I mean, you know, we're not talking 6 figures, but you can usually expect stuff in the thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. And we are talking brand name, Swiss-made, high-end, legitimate, yes, because I know some of you are going, oh, yeah, it's got to be. No, straight up, legitimate, Swiss-made timepieces. And the great part is, with full warranty, and U.S.-based repair warranty, you know, work that can be done, right? So you're not shipping your watch off and having it looked at and or repaired or worked under warranty, and then get it back, you know, 6 months later. Now, there's, you know, at least one watch company in the U.S. that does U.S. repairs, and it'll take you 6 months. Did I say that? So anyway, you're going to have the higher-end, grail-worthy type pieces that you don't typically see. Number one, at the price points we're going to be able to bring it to you at, but especially ever done on a daily deal and have it actually be a real legitimate, you know, Jaeger LeCoultre timepiece. Now, not everybody can afford those watches. Not everybody can afford those watches on a regular basis. That's fine. We understand. We got options for you. The second watch in the email is going to be more budget friendly. We don't have a hard set line right now. We may develop one. But I'm talking, you know, on the lower end, you know, trying to think, ESQ is one of them, TW Steel, a lot of other brands that you're going to know. Some we may be introducing you to. ICE is kind of an interesting brand. They made a big splash in Basel World a few years ago. They had this whole Orange Man thing going on. It was kind of funny to see. But you're going to have a lot of options. But on the higher end, like I was talking about the Jaeger, we're talking, what's some of the stuff we've got coming up? Graham, right? Some of you may be familiar with like the Graham Chrono Fighter. Actually, I really like those watches. But yeah, the brand Graham, Baume & Mercier, those types of things. And then again, like I said, the more budget friendly, you know, the Daniel Wellingtons, if you know the brand, if you don't, it's going to sound weird, but toy watch that's out there and really popular. And we're going to have stuff for the ladies and the gentlemen as well. So those will be going out every day, directing you to the website, showing the information. You can make the purchase of those watches there. Great thing is, this is going to start on Wednesday. So that's the 15th? Wednesday the 15th of November. That's what we're targeting. I'm already putting stuff together and getting it all lined up. So if you are not on the email list, and you can do that pretty much on any page of talkaboutwatches.com, it says join our email list. If you are a subscriber to the email list, you are going to get first dibs. For those of you that have been on and are still currently on the Hotness Picks email list, I encourage you to get on the Talk About Watches email list. But if you don't, you're still good on the Hotness Picks. Okay? There's going to be some other things we're going to do on the Talk About Watches email list that won't be done on the Hotness Picks email list. If some of you are going, what? Don't worry about it. Just sign up on the website. You're golden. For those of you that have been with me for a while, you're not going to receive duplicate emails. So it's not like every time we send something out. So don't worry about unsubscribing on one to subscribe on the other. Just go subscribe on talkaboutwatches.com. And I just have a feeling, you know, kind of doing everything ad hoc here, that didn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Just sign up. Just make it really, really easy. You're going to get first dibs on the watch when they come out, before we promote it everywhere else on Facebook and Instagram and all the other places. Plus, if you're on the Talk About Watches site, we're getting ready to start doing some fun and interesting giveaways and special deals just because you're an action taker and you got on the email list, and we like you because you did that. Okay? So definitely want to be able to take advantage of that. Remember, starting on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday the 15th. So the biggest takeaway here when it comes to the Hotness Picks, and really anything to do with Talk About Watches from the sales aspects, whether it's the shows that we think we finally kind of got figured out and going to make the technology do what we want it to do, and this will be a good test of whether that's working, whether it's the shop that we have on the website at talkaboutwatches.com. Any of that is geared towards saving you money, right? The industry is really changing, both the watch industry and the mechanisms by which these watches are sold to you. And a lot of the expense in a timepiece, and Tim and I are going to talk to you more about that when we get the show rolling, is all the middlemen that are involved in between the owner of that watch. So for example, in the case of the flash sale, Deep Blue, and us selling the watch to you, we're cutting out 2, 3, 4, and when it comes to the Hotness Picks, the way that this is all going to work, behind the scenes, right? The inside baseball stuff that you folks don't see, is it cuts out so many people, it drastically reduces the price, because it's that markup that the middlemen are taking that really drive up the cost of the timepieces. So we want to leverage that technology on top of the relationships that we have and those that we're able to build, like going to Basel, for the Basel World Show, and being able to leverage that and bring it to you at a much lower cost and price point than would normally be seen. Now, the great thing is, the more that we're able to do that, the more we'll be able to do that. And by that, I mean our success is going to dictate further better pricing for you folks, right? So if folks can come in, and they can come in with, say, $1,000 watch, And over the course of 3 days, they can sell, and I'm just pulling numbers out of the air here, 20 of those watches. There's not a lot of mediums that they have in which that brand sells 20 watches in 3 days and has a higher profit margin on each one of those timepieces that's sold than they typically do at the other venues where they're sold, because so many people have their fingers in the pie taking that money. Do Tim and I or our company make a profit off of that? You're damn skippy we do. That's the only way. We got to pay for all this stuff somehow, right? We're diehard capitalists, man. But we're not greedy. And by not being greedy and offering you a deal and leveraging those relationships and leveraging the technology, everybody is happy. As they say, the rising tide will lift all the boats that are there, and the one you're concerned about is yours and is typically in your back pocket or your pocketbook. So that's the big thing. Keep an eye out on Wednesday. We're going to have some more information up about this, but the key thing is get on the mailing list. Talkaboutwatches.com. Every page that you go to look at has a sign-up page. So if it says something about sign up here, just sign up. You're golden. Once you do, bang, we got it. So let's dig into one or two other things here real quick, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up and then see how this live broadcast went. Alrighty, so before we wrap everything up, and I don't want to make this too long, and in case you hear me taking a drink of water, this is probably the longest I've talked, or the most, at least an extended point of time in a long time. So that's the great thing about being live and having your voice be a little out of whack and not used to it. But didn't want to go too long. We had some questions that have been sitting around forever. We asked folks to send them in. Have not had a chance to be able to answer them, so I just thought I'd end with trying to run through and answer a few of them. I will try and skip over the ones that also ask for Tim's specific input. Does not mean that we are not going to address these. We are. Actually, we have a little prize package put together, and everybody who I read now will still be in the drawing for that. But I just thought I'd run through a few of these, and it'll give us a few extra minutes as we're doing a little beta testing, as I said, on this broadcast software. So hopefully it'll be of interest to everyone, and we'll kind of see what we have in the grab bag. And I'm sorry if I'm stalling for time, but I am, because I'm just trying to scan through all these and find one. All right, here's one. This is, oh, and by the way, all the questions that you're asking in the chat, the technology that we're using, just to give you a quick breakdown, we're not going to answer these questions. We do have somebody that is copying all those questions, so they will not go unanswered. If you think you're being ignored, please know that you are not. We are on a very severe delay from the time when we're saying this to what's actually happening on the screen. As you're seeing it, and in some of the tests that we did, it was just way too crazy. But what this allows us to do is record multiple streams, first of all, at different qualities. So for instance, if this happened to have crashed, or it can't handle a 720p stream, which is the high end, the high def level, we do also have the 480, which would be like standard television definition size, that we can go to. The other is the delay allows us to go through another device to be able to process it before it's sent on. And in doing so, we hope to remove some of the jitter, the freezing, and the other things. But we'll see how that goes. So please don't think you're being ignored. You are not. I would not do that to you. And Tim might, you know, because that's, you know, that's just the way Tim is, you know, but Tim's not here. But God, and it's so sad. I have to say I'm kidding because I've done that before and people like thought I was being serious. So, or maybe I am. Anyway, first question, and I'm just going to leave the last names off. I don't have permission to use last names, so I'm not gonna. This is from Mark T. And he says, hey, just wondering why this is the best time to start a venture like this. Great idea and looking forward to what you guys can bring to the table. And I am assuming this is in regards to talk about watches in general. So it's not so much that right now is per se the best reason, or best time, I should say. It is kind of fortuitous because of things that are going on in the watch industry. If you haven't seen, the Swiss watch exports anyway have been up for the last 4 months after really, and we're, again, I hate to keep saying we're working on an article, but we really are. The last 4 months of this year have been an upturn for the Swiss part of the industry anyway. Depending on how you look at their numbers and what spin you believe or don't believe, really the last 5 years have been crap for the Swiss industry. Last year was horrendous, but it's kind of playing out the way that I thought it was, or thought it would. Actually, they're a few months earlier than what I thought it was going to be. We were talking about this on Facebook. At the end of the day, though, what it really comes down to is what we're doing and the people that we're talking to, meaning the average Joe, the everyday guy that's buying, you know, moderately to inexpensive timepieces, but still enjoys everything about watch collecting. Meaning, you know, the news, the information, the history, broadening their knowledge and their horizons, and maybe over time as they, you know, if it's a younger person or whatever, and they're, you know, broadening their bank accounts as they, you know, get better and higher paying jobs. You know, it's a very hugely overlooked segment of the watch industry. And actually, you know, refer back to my friend Gary Gervais at About Time magazine. That's the whole reason About Time exists, is to cover those folks that are interested in and buying watches at about a $2,000 to $2,500 price point and below. Because, yeah, you know, all those other magazines, you know, it's great to see the watch porn, right? You know, but I don't know about you, but I'm not going out and buying a Richard Mille anytime soon. I'm not going out buying a Breguet anytime soon, or a Patek Philippe. I would if I could, but my bank account is seriously missing most of the zeros needed to be able to accomplish that. And quite frankly, you know, am I ever going to be able to afford $1 million watch? I hope so. That would be really nice to have that kind of disposable income. But we think we're catering to folks that are pretty much like us, that are, you know, just the average Joe. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an answer to that. Let's see. I'm going to grab this one because I know the name. He's been around for a while. David C. Is on there. He says, hey guys, what is your preference between sealed watch casebacks versus see-through crystal open casebacks? Bulova has changed to a closed caseback on most of its new AccuSwiss watches from the open caseback Accutron watch. I prefer the open back to see the movement because I am a watch enthusiast. I believe that this may have been done as a cost-cutting move, but I think that it detracts from the watch. Is this feature important to you? So he said, hey guys, I guess I could. Well, again, we'll let Tim take a swing at these as well. I'm going to start with the last part and work backwards. Is this feature important to you? For me, it's not a deal breaker. The only time I'm really going to be concerned about having that exhibition case back is if I'm really buying something expensive with a very special type of movement that is in there. Now, with that being said, if I'm buying a mechanical or mechanical automatic, I would lean towards having the open case back because, like you, I'm a watch enthusiast, or as I call myself, a watch geek. And I'm into the movements and like to certainly like to be able to see them. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the fact that it is, at least in total, a cost savings on the production of the watches. And I can't speak to Bulova specifically, but here's why I say that. Yes, an exhibition caseback is generally going to be more expensive than a closed caseback. However, what you'll find is with most brands, the case backs with very little difference will fit on a multitude of different models. Now, they may engrave it or decorate it slightly or whatever, but it's essentially the same case back. So you overcome that generally by the numbers that you're producing, either through yourself or through the third party that's making the case backs for you. So even though it's maybe an exhibition case back, you can then afford to have, and just pulling a number out of the air, 50,000 of them made in a particular run, which reduces the amount of money you're paying per item. The more you buy, the lower the cost, the per piece cost is going to be, but you can spread that cost out across multiple watches. I'd have to know more about, specifically, what is going on there. In general, though, I tend to think, and especially with a company like Bulova, they're not a new kid on the block. They kind of know what they're doing. They understand their market. So I'd have to know a little bit more about that to answer in particular. But at the end of the day, not going to be a huge deal breaker for me, except under certain circumstances. Well, this is from Martin W. This is kind of a Tim thing too, but that's okay because, like I said, we'll let him take a swing at it. Looks like there's several short ones in here. What got each of you into watches? What watch is or was a grail for you? What is each of your favorite movements and why? How many watches do you have in your collection? How many watches do you have in your collection? I still don't know for sure. I did sell some of mine about a year and a half ago. Not a huge number, but some of them. Actually, I've still got some more that I'm going to sell just because I don't wear them. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 500 in that range. What got me into watches? I was at elementary school, and my dad is a Vietnam veteran. And in living in Corpus Christi when I was in elementary school, he gave me the watch that he was wearing in Vietnam, and it kind of went from there. It was a cheap plastic, United States government issued watch, but my dad gave it to me and it was mine. It was the coolest thing in the world, and it just kind of went from there. Which watch is a grail watch? Grails are funny, man. How you define that term for different people means different things. If you had to pin me down, I could start on the low end with something like from Nord Zeitmachine and Daniel Nobel. Actually, Tim has done what I call the best review of a Nord Zeitmachine time machine, or a Nord Zeitmachine watch, the Vario Curve in particular, on Talk About Watches right now. Hugely in-depth, ton of articles, a lot of great information. The stuff that Daniel does with Nord Zeitmachine is freaking amazing. Moving up from there, man, anything from MB&F, which is a favorite brand of mine. Anything from Thomas Pressure. anything from Christophe Claret. What else? Urk is another favorite of mine. Actually, if you want to pick one watch, that would be the Urk pocket watch that they made. I think they made like 5 of them, so besides the price, I'm not getting it. Favorite movement and why? I mean, you know, they're all great. Probably right now, again, I go back to something like MB&F and Urk and Nordzeitmaschine, where they're making their own. They're a manufacturer piece. You know, 7750s are great. 2824s are great. You know, Soprod, the A10, you know, is great. But when you start getting into the really custom, never existed till these guys made it, that's what I'd lean to as a grail piece. And grails typically are unobtainable. Let's see, another couple of quick ones here. Sorry. It's one of the great things about being alive. Here's one from Mike H. How has the prominence of smartwatches affected the traditional watch market? In your opinion, has it hurt or helped? I kind of want to say both as far as hurt or helped. The Swiss pretty much did the same damn thing they did with the Japanese in what many folks call the Great Quartz Crisis, and almost put them out of business, them being the Swiss watch industry. And that was being dismissive and looking down their nose at quartz watches and the Japanese. Not the Japanese because they were Japanese, but the Japanese producing the quartz watch movement. And they kind of did that with the same way with the smartwatches. Or really, it's not even correct anymore to say smartwatch, a wearable device. Tog Heuer kind of got on board there really quick and has had some great success. I think it is going to help spur those in the Swiss watch industry to be more innovative in the timepieces and the level of interconnectivity that you get in this digital age. I also think it is going to help in the fact, and man, I could go for a couple hours on this. The younger generation that is used to a device that right now would tell you they'd never wear a traditional analog watch, but would wear a smart device or a connected device or a smart watch. Many of them over time, as they become older, will respect more and move into a more traditionalized timepiece like you and I may wear, you know, in the analog world. So I think if you can court that market while they're young and get their dollars then, all you need to do is look at a company like Apple. And if you can achieve even a fraction of the success that Apple has had in branding their products to their customers and essentially getting a customer for life, then you are going to reach a level of success that very few people do. And in the watch market, I think that moving forward to a very large degree, that's how that will happen. You get them younger with the digital connected smart devices, and then as they get older, they'll move into whatever device kind of replaces the analog that we've got here, or you know, it stays analog. So short answer that deserves a longer one, but a great question from you. And just trying to grab a couple of more and we'll get out of here. I appreciate everybody hanging out here. Grabbing this one because again I know the name. Bill P. I was just talking to Bill last night. Pretty sure that's him off of Facebook. He says there are quartz watches that are verified chronometers. My question is, what is done to a quartz watch that could elevate it to the level of being certified? Kind of a loaded question, but in brief, and when he says a verified chronometer, he's referring to technically a certified chronometer or a COSC certified chronometer, or the term you'll hear those, quote unquote, in the biz, COSC, 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 the COSC certification. So when it comes, first of all, a quartz watch, almost any quartz watch, no matter how cheap a piece of junk it is going to be more accurate than an automatic or a mechanical. Okay, that's just the way that works. Now, when it comes to a quartz watch getting a COSC certification, there really isn't one. The COSC, the organization itself, and I am not going to butcher the French because I am a redneck from Texas who has enough difficulty with the English language, so we'll stick with the COSC or COSC. There is no certification for quartz, so they kind of made it up. But the biggest thing that affects the accuracy of a quartz watch is it's two things wrapped into one. And that's what you see additionally on the testing for a COSC certified quartz, and that is temperature and humidity. So when you look at a quartz movement that is COSC certified, you're talking about a timepiece that, number one, to deal with temperature is what they call thermocompensated, and the testing is very heavy, and actually it's done at 3 different temperatures, 8, 23, and 38 degrees Celsius for the quartz timepieces. And to deal with the humidity levels, it's essentially casing. The casing has to be done in such a way as that the humidity cannot have any effect on the inside components. But keep in mind, COSC certification for a non-quartz is only maintaining an average daily rate of -4 to +6 seconds per day. Now, of course, that's an average, and you'd have to get into how they look at all that and the different positions that they're done. But particularly, Bill, thermal compensation and casing done in such a way as to protect it from the humidity. One or two more if we can get some quick ones. No, that's particularly asking for Tim. No. Okay, I'm sure we can find one or two more. Come on. Okay, this is from Alan K. He says, do you believe that the first tourbillon developed... Wait, let me start over. Sorry. Alan K., I'm butchering your question. Do you believe that the first tourbillon was developed with an artistic approach to the beauty of the watch, or do you believe that the tourbillon was developed from an engineering approach as far as the mechanics and placement and overall functionality? I believe, personally, I can say that with 100% equivocally, that it was done strictly from an engineering point of view, right? So when the tourbillon was invented by Abraham Louis Breguet, 1796, 97, there's a little bit of difference between supposedly when it was invented, when he got the patent for it. But remember, at that point in time, men were not wearing wristwatches. They wore pocket watches, and it was the pocket watch sitting in the vertical position, which is usually either in the waistcoat, the stand that was made for it. Like, so at night, when you took the watch off, there was a little stand you could hang the watch on your bed. Everything, it was in vertical, and it was the pull of gravity, so Breguet thought, that was causing the inaccuracy in the movement that was coming down there. So he was obsessed with this, and that's why, you know, he was working so hard to create that rotating cage so that the balance wheel, the hairspring, everything about that part of the escapement was never in that one sitting position having a constant pull of gravity. It was constantly in a state of flux, and he thought that state of flux, or expanding that pull across all aspects of the movement as it was rotating in 360 degrees, would compensate for the gravitational difference. Now, whether it did or not, that's an argument that can be made. However, the other part of that, the reason I'm so confident in saying that is, if you go back and look at pocket watches of the time, movements and showing them off the way that we do now was not that important. Now, you can find pocket watches that were designed so that you could look at the back of the watch, or what we would refer to as the top plate, because the back of the watch is actually the top of the watch movement. That's how they worked on it. So that's considered the top. But it was usually either encased or done in such a way that it wasn't on a permanent display. And in many times, the way that the pocket watch cases were done, it was more for a convenience of the watchmaker, who may have to get into that pocket watch at a later time. So I would certainly say it was done strictly from an engineering approach, and now being done more from an artistic approach as well. Here's a quick one from Gerald K. If I wanted to become a watch designer or manufacturer, what suggestions would you offer? Movements, selling brick and mortar versus internet, attending watch design school. Well, I don't own I'm not a watch designer, and I am not a manufacturer, although I am happy to say I have offered quite a bit of design suggestions to people, and have actually had them put that into effect in their watch over the years. But here's the thing, Gerald. You're either one of those people that has an innate talent right now, to see things that people don't, to put on paper what you're seeing in your head, and a technological and or engineering a way of thinking to be able to process all that, or you're one of those people that needs to go to school to learn how to do it. One is not necessarily better than the other. If you are one of those people that already has a set of skills now, reach out and find someone who will mentor you in the short term to give you a short list. You may have heard of what's called the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 principle. 80% of your returns are going to come from 20% of your effort. There's a whole long conversation that can go into that. But if you can find, I think, the 20% that you need to know that you can put into effect quickly, or in a relatively quick time frame, that would be the route that I would go. Look at all the brands and micro brands and individuals that are on Kickstarter. That is a great way that if you can pitch your product and show that, besides all the other things you need, you know, with the enthusiasm, and, you know, obviously that you don't sound like Bubba Gump, you know, in trying to present this, and you know, have some wits about you, so to speak. But you can raise tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in some cases millions of dollars. But, you know, I mean, just go look at what they're doing on something like Kickstarter. So if you have the ability to start putting that into action quickly, and can learn very quickly what you need to know, I would skip the external post-secondary educational part of that, unless you absolutely feel or find that it is necessary to be able to do that. And with that said, guys, let's go ahead and cut this now. We've got a ton of other questions, but obviously this is going long, so we're going to knock this out as quickly as possible here. So I appreciate the questions, and let's just go ahead and wrap everything up right now. And sorry for the little pause there. I had to get out of the software that I had the questions opened up in. My thanks to everybody that has hung with me through this entire thing, allowed me to do some beta testing with this new software. For those of you that haven't left a opinion, not necessarily of me as your humble host right now, flying solo without Tim, but about the quality of the stream, how it behaved for you, different devices that you may have experienced or not experienced issues on. All of that is very much welcome. If you hear anyone yelling about the fact they don't have Facebook, they'll never get on Facebook, they're not going to give that Zuckerberg the chance to spy on whatever, it will be up on talkaboutwatches.com either later tonight or first thing in the morning. I am a little bit tired. I have been up since 5 o'clock this morning. Do go grab the Deep Blue Flash sale, the Recon, the DayNight Recon Value 7750 64 tube tritium gas tube, by the way, not just tube, tritium gas tube, 10-year anniversary, limited edition, $999, reduced from $1,799, or grab a BBG, Beads by Gonzo bracelet. Don't let the fact that he's a Minnesota Vikings fan hold you back. By the way, for all you Vikings fans, I have 2 words for you. Adrian Peterson. Just saying. Or the By custom woven paracord style bracelets. Also, the Beads by Gonzo, $30 each. 2 options that are there, plus his regular offerings in his part of the store. Sean's by Sean bracelets as part of the flash sale, $15. He has other products. Oh, I didn't even mention the fact that he does the paracord style watch straps. And have you seen the spinners that he does? Oh my God, I'm kicking myself in the ass right now. I'm sorry, Sean, because I'm sure if he's not watching, he's going to see this. But you'll see it in the store. Go look. Anyway, that'll get me going again. Again, for those of you that have been asking questions and they are not getting answered, we are copying all those down. We're on a huge delay. It gets very confusing trying to answer questions that happened minutes ago, and then we find out people ask follow-up questions, which are even further behind. So trust me, as we refine this stuff out, it'll work better, and you are going to also get your questions answered no matter what, and it will be when Tim is involved. As you can see, the clock is counting down. I have to go. So thank you very much. Do leave your comments and opinions on how this software worked and worked for you. If you did have issues, leave me specifics. What kind of phone were you on? If it was a phone issue, a computer, was it a notebook? Were you on wireless? Were you plugged in Ethernet? Are you Windows? Are you Apple? Android, iOS, Windows Phone, all of those kind of things, right? Leave me as much detail as you possibly can. If you want to critique me and how I did, hey, I got thin skin, or thick skin, I should say. I can take it. Go ahead. I'm more concerned at this point in time over how well this software presented itself to you. So again, thanks very much. Grab the Deep Blue Flash Sale. Check out talkaboutwatches.com. Sign up for the email list, and especially because of the Hotness Picks coming on Wednesday. Getting hot in here. Thanks, everybody. I truly appreciate it.